We'll call the roll. Paul Zonderman here. Dale Black Pennington. Jamie Puccioni.
Present.
Jessica Brennan.
Here.
Elena Finnan. Absent. Jordan Koshan. Jeffrey Lation.
Here.
Marina Fairchild. And did I miss you again?
That's Greenwood.
Yeah, there it is.
Thank you.
I had it down here. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. I understand that the supervisor has a presentation or something to make tonight.
Yes, after the approval of minutes, subgroups B will be presenting, and it'll be Chief Koshin and myself talking a little bit about what
Why
we're
don't
doing.
we just start with that, and then we'll go into A, and that'll probably take to the rest of the period.
Do we want to do the minutes?
Will we be going into the approval of the minutes, Chairman?
Sure.
Zondervan?
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
I didn't get them.
I did email them out.
Yes, I received them.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
All right, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for the last meeting?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are accepted. Now, do you just want to begin?
Absolute. Is this working? Absolutely, yes. Would you like to take the lead and then I'll
I
add,
can.
or-
I can. So the subgroup that we looked at was under B, which is employing smart and effective policing standards and strategies. There's a lot to unpack in this particular one. It's not a lengthy one, but there's a lot of recommendations that have a lot to them. And so the supervisor and I spoke extensively about a few of them, and we were looking at overarching themes throughout all the recommendations towards sort of analysis. And we looked at finding sort of 15, 17, and 18 as a package, which I think everybody has in front of them regarding use of force and who fills those forms out. Do multiple officers for tracking purposes fill out those forms? And finding 15. Finding 17 was specific more to producing and publishing a publicly available annual report that summarizes the use of force incidents, making it publicly available again in finding 17. And then finding 18 was a tracking database to ensure all the use of force incidents are properly documented in an easily accessible data sheet. And just some updates on some of these things. First and foremost, from a tracking standpoint, we had a staff meeting yesterday. Detective Faga has been putting the final touches on having a use of force form through an internal built system. Again, we have a talented person that works for us to be able to manage one of the recommendations without costing the town anything other than his time. And we're going to roll that out August 1st internally regarding that. And what that's going to do is give us more real-time access to run the analytics of our data on use of force. It's also going to, in conjunction with that, finding 15 with the multiple officers, one of the things we ran into was we're currently doing paper sheets, and that was sort of a shortcoming when we initially began the reform process, because we had to look at this from the standpoint of not making it so incumbent on multiple police officers doing multiple forms. Traditionally, what we did was we did a singular use of force form, and it was narrated in there from one officer that utilized force, the force that was being used. We're changing that and transitioning that because we're going to have the ability through this new system to pull the narratives of each individual officer from our report writing system. And in those narratives, it's going to state the reason for using force. And it's going to pull to this back end system that Detective Faga, help him explain this, right, has created. And auto-populate so that everyone's individual narrative is going to be in those digitized use of force forms, which is amazing. And I can't thank him enough for all the work he's done. But those three we kind of packaged together. And one of the things that we had done also, and I'm going to let the town supervisor speak to this a little bit more, was, again, an overarching theme for the analytics. And I know that we spoke prior to the meeting with some of the folks that are here, how we're going to work towards not only developing processes internally, policy internally, collecting data, but then also that the biggest component is the analysis of that data and what that looks like. So I don't know if you want to talk about what we did with regards to that.
Absolutely. Well, given my background in research and specifically an emphasis on database decision-making, I felt it was really important to think about our data collection processes, the measures that we're going to be using to analyze our policing policies, procedures. So first, we started out by reviewing some literature around different surveys. And then I reached out to the University at Albany School of Criminal Justice, which I did not know until I reached out to them, is an internationally renowned program. It is actually home to the second-ranked PhD program in our nation and third-ranked undergraduate program. And I reached out to a faculty member who then promptly responded and came in and met with myself, Chief Koshin, and Detective Kafaga. And we talked through a range of issues, and we are able to develop a partnership with the School of Criminal Justice. Our goal is to develop a collaborative data collection process and analytic plans. Given that I'm a researcher and I primarily do quantitative work, analyzing survey data, I understand how important it is to make sure you are using measures that are both valid and reliable. You can run an analysis, but your analysis is only as good as the data that you put into the model. So I want to make sure that we're looking to experts in this field. So in addition to partnering with one faculty member specifically, we're also working with their department to develop a partnership in which we can hire a PhD graduate assistant to continue to develop measures, surveys, conduct analyses. And we're working currently with the town comptroller to build this into our 2023 budget. I really believe the partnership is unprecedented, particularly for a department of our size. I know in my experience conducting research and working with other scholars and other departments, one of the biggest challenges for doing research in criminal justice is actually getting data, whether it's nationally representative data, state level data, or even really good municipal data. And the faculty member was really quite surprised at how eager we were to develop this partnership and like open the doors to, yeah, come look at the data we have, look at our processes, help us make them better, and then continue to what our goal is, engage in a continuous cycle of improvement. So continuing to collect data, analyze that data, and think about how do we need to improve. And that will be looking internally, but also externally as well. We spent a good deal of time taking a close look at the CNA report. We talked about future collection, future measures, collection processes. And so I think it's a good step. It moves us towards our goals for, this subgroup, which is smart and effective policing standards and strategies. But it also goes across other subgroups like the functions of the police department, as well as community-oriented leadership, culture, and accountability. We talked about how we could create surveys and collect data from our community members. because after watching the meeting last month, I recognized, as Cobra stated, it's one thing to have an annual meeting or come to the police and public safety meeting, but it's a very public avenue, public venue, and one might not feel comfortable sharing concerns. And so we have to have multiple points to collect data, and that was something I really felt passionate about, and I'm glad that we could create this partnership, and I look forward to where it progresses.
Any questions?
And just to,
Well, I'm nerdy and passionate about that. I'm like, ooh, numbers, research.
well, and just to kind of piggyback off what the supervisor said, I mean, there really isn't absent, and I can't even say there really isn't, because even in the policy recommendations, everything inside of this document needs an ongoing analysis. We all agree on that. And the only way to begin that process is to have the best minds of the world partnering with us to develop how we're going to collect, analyze, report, and then build off it. And so I think that this partnership, again, potentially could really change sort of the playing field for the town of Niskuna, the Niskuna Police Department, and our engagement with the community from that standpoint. So I'm couldn't have been happier that the town supervisor took the initiative to reach directly out to them and had those connections to do so. And like I said, the gentleman, the faculty member that we met with, who happens to be a town resident, met with us offline and was excellent in giving his insight. You know, he said to us, it not only would it be unprecedented, as a supervisor said, for a department our size to be doing these things, but the wall that they meet as researchers is to have agencies that are willing to even participate and offer up that data and those behind the scenes looks. I mean, I went so far as to say to him, like, I have an office already ready, right? Like, how do we do this? And he was very excited about that from that standpoint as well. So I think it could be good on both ends for us to build that.
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot to mention, he is a town resident, Professor Wilson. And, you know, one, as an academic in the summer months, he returned my email within 24 hours and scheduled an appointment to come in and visit within like 48 hours. And he's being very generous with his time. I'm very aware that he could be charging hundreds of dollars for consulting work, and he's going to volunteer his time to work with us.
Anything?
That's impressive. I just had a quick comment. Is that
Well, go
okay?
ahead. Sure.
It sounds like such an impressive venture. And I applaud you, Town Supervisor Guccione and Chief Cochan. I do have a question, though. We seem to have taken off in terms of data collection with Detective Trafalgar. Will he be an integral part of this effort? Will he be working closely?
Yes. He, so again, and I don't know if we spoke about this extensively, I think I mentioned it, but when CNA initially came in and they requested our data, the only reason they got our data, the way they got our data, was because of his abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So we have continued to not only include him in all of these discussions, which is why he was there as well, but Detective Kafaga has been and is going to continue to be an integral part of this process, because he is sort of our IT liaison to develop these systems of collection behind the scenes, because quite frankly, the amount of money we would probably spend in either personal hours through Seth Goldstein or hiring an outside firm to build these things would be substantial. So having his technical skill and his abilities behind the scenes, yes, moving forward, he's going to be building it towards the specifications that we're giving recommendations on, surveys included and everything else. So
Let me ask a question. In going through all this previous literature that you all worked on, there was a great section on all different kinds of stops and numbers, and they were making percentages of different groups that were ticketed and all that. I mean, where is all that and where does that come from? Is that going to get into this?
So that was some of the pitfalls that we discussed that CNA even recognized in their document was from the lack of data over a long period of time, and in conjunction, the lack of data for not only for summons that were issued on traffic stops, but also traffic stops that didn't result in summons. And so even as of today, Detective Kafaga, because we've been waiting sort of to piggyback off of other systems that are currently in the process of being developed. Detective Kafaga, I spoke to him the other day and I said, you know what, we need to build a backup plan. And he showed me this morning the backup plan, which is going to be an internal housed data analysis center specific to traffic stops with all of the components that we're speaking about that were mentioned inside of the CNA document, whether there was a summons issued or not. And we would then deploy that to our officers to make sure we're getting all of the data moving forward.
And then you hopefully will put it into this
Yes.
system.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? You want to say anything else?
I'm good.
I think we left off with Dale's, what did I say, what number it was, 4A or something? You were going through a lot of these. We didn't get very far because there was a lot of discussion.
I thought that we were going to go on to, for the next meeting, we're going to go on to the next subcommittee, which would be Subcommittee A.
Okay,
So at this meeting, since Subcommittee B has completed their presentation for tonight, we're open now to going on to item 5, which would be a discussion of new items, new issues in open discussion, I believe.
are you talking about 5A? Oh, on there, new issues and open discussion, all right. Does anybody have any new issues?
Well, actually, as I sit here, we did receive, our parliamentarian, Attorney Finnan is not present tonight. We did receive a reminder from her by email today regarding Robert's rules and how we must proceed as a task force within the town. So I just wanted to sort of commemorate her advice, and just mention to everyone that in the future, we must conduct our business as a task force before inviting our towns members to have discussions and questions. So that actually is a new item because we did receive an email I received an email from Elena Finnan reminding us of such. And I just wanted to make that statement in her absence.
I think we generally follow it, except for when I forget to take a vote sometimes. No, but I'm quite familiar with Robert's Rules of Order. I have the booklet at home. I'll bring it in and keep it in my notebook.
I don't think it's not a reminder. I don't think it's a reminder for any particular individual. It's just a general reminder that she sent over, and I thought I'd just commemorate
Fine.
for everyone, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder.
Thank you, Jamie.
I'd like to, I have a suggestion, something to discuss.
Mhm.
We started out and had on this committee a lot of discussions about a civilian review board. And in the beginning, I was like whistling in the wind when I told them there's the Taylor law and you can't do it, and there are union contracts that cover discipline and, and discipline of the police. I mean, there's a grievance procedure, there's a whole procedure, and it's generally a confidential procedure. So I think Marina has swallowed that slowly and steadily. I think she realizes that that's not exactly where we're going to go, and I don't think we should be wasting a lot of time on that. When you get down to brass tacks, it's these issues. I think you're talking about data and equipment and training, and there are a couple of more I would like to add. What type of evaluations the officers have when they first come in. I've said it before, but these are some different people. I have a brother in Florida. He's a PhD in psychology. He is the police psychologist for Miami-Dade Police Department. That is 3,000 men. He gives them the examination, the psychologist, all of them. And he came from the CSCA in Virginia, CSIA, where he did the same exams. There aren't a lot of people that drop out of them, but there are some that they rate them in the talent levels that are needed for a police officer. The ability to take charge of a situation, the ability to hold his temper down, the ability to be sympathetic and understand both sides. There are a lot of factors. I can't review it, but there are films put out by various organizations on the discrimination. I don't think we've talked about it too much. I'm glad we have the data connection. That's amazing. But I'd like to be more concrete right down there with the police department. I think when they have their training sessions, I'd like some of us to be able to observe them. Although you say it's you do it yourself at home on the computer. I mean, don't you have sometimes?
Some of it's virtual. We did adopt a platform because we're a small police department that doesn't have the resources to have training for a lot of things that in person. So a lot of times the officer's doing it during downtime in the police vehicle or at the station and things of that nature. There are other components that obviously we do in person, right? The range, we're going to start defensive tactics and things of that nature. But yes, a lot of it is more virtual based training for those things with test assessments and evaluations that go into them as well inside of the platform online.
There's one other area which we don't touch very much. I just bring it up because I'm glad some people from the town board are here. The union goes up to the sergeant. Sergeant is the highest rated member in the collective bargaining agreement. Beyond that, it's management, so to speak. So when you have negotiations between management and the union, the chief is on the management side, and Jeff or whoever is doing the negotiation is kind of representing them. Now, if they, I don't know that, well, Elena told me she has had a session or two with this particular law firm. I called up the law firm to introduce myself, say, what are you doing? And I don't want to know. I mean, I'm not looking to stick my nose into it, but there are continuing negotiations. Well, some of the stuff that we might want to do might be a requirement to just get it in the negotiations. Maybe the union would like it. Why not? get into that or have a little input on what's happening with those contract negations. Just a couple of wild ideas, left field. But I think that steers us on the practical way of where we're going to go. I mean, all kinds of training and, there are a number of things that the union would agree that.
And just to touch on that, Judge, those are some of the things that we are addressing, facilitating more in-person training through contract negotiations. We're looking at sort of those longer term issues. But a lot of the stuff that we're describing couldn't be captured inside of a negotiation currently, because I think a lot of this is still in progress to be worked on towards the future. But the relationship that's being established between management, the town, and the PBA, I think is stronger than it's ever been. And so we're all of the same mindset that we're going to sort of attack these issues and come to good, beneficial agreements moving forward, should there be a need down the road.
That's really good. I'm glad to hear it. It's basically what you're doing. These negotiations is confidential. I mean, it's not necessarily going to come to us, but if we're looking at some things and trying to make plans and looking at the budget that sort of have to be kind of stamped or someone by the union, or they get an informal agreement that something like that will be in the new contract that you're negotiating. And it just might be a link. I suppose you're the link. Well, I'm not sure how we.
I'm the link too.
Huh?
I'm the link too. And I agree with you. And I'm
Okay,
keeping this in mind as well.
good.
Thank
Good.
you. Yes.
That's just some topics to discuss. But Dale, you're the one with all the ideas for topics.
Not at this time. I think we've covered quite a bit. We can, I guess, open the floor to any comment before adjourning the meeting, to any public comment if there's any.
Let me ask you one more question.
Mhm.
I sensed in the past an issue about on this subcommittee having civilians, so to speak, come in and speak. It's fine with me, but Elena, wasn't she going to look into the conditions of this
think-
whole thing?
I think that was part of my statement. Maybe I was a bit vague, but Elena did address it in her email. And so civilians or privilege of the floor
Yeah.
would be at the end of our meeting prior to adjourning. We could
Well, no,
open it up.
I think it's
and if-
fine. It just,
if
can we do it?
if
Do we
civilians-
specifically have to approve it with a vote?
I don't think we have to approve it with a vote
All right,
at all.
fine. I mean, we're glad to hear people. The more we do that, the better it is.
But the point I think that she was trying to make is that our fellow citizens in the town who are not a part of the task force cannot participate in in the task force duties. They can provide comment or suggestions during the privilege of the floor, but that would be after we've conducted our business as a task force.
All right, I suppose so, however we want to structure it, yeah.
So at this time, then, do you want to move us forward, Judge Sonderman, in opening it up for privilege of the floor?
Okay, the privilege of the floor is opened. Hello?
If anyone, there are only two citizens. Okay, it looks okay.
Here we go.
I will, this is John Lemlin. I live at 1106 Glenota Court. Just as a civilian, as Judge Zonderman just said, I'm very encouraged by this group. I appreciate the dedication and the commitment that everyone is putting in this group, keeping track of 150 different recommendations with very difficult timeframes and very involved, complicated processes and procedures in a very small department. So I acknowledge and just credit all of you, each of you, for your leadership and your hard work. And I'm thrilled to see the University of Albany and the criminal justice program getting involved with such a, this kind of effort. So that's wonderful. So thank you.
Question? No, I have a question. Are we doing what you've already done and discussed in your groups? Okay, good.
Thank you, John.
Anything else on the floor? Anything else for the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Are you making it or just mentioning it?
I'm making it.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Then we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Our next meeting is August 4th. I'm going backwards. August 4th, I believe, which is the first Thursday of August.
August 4th.
See you then. And I promise I'll get the agenda out before.
Yeah, somewhere, the minutes of the last meeting.